Right before we get into this video, would you like me to send you this free guide to capturing motion in low light situations so you can get better pictures in low light? Just look for this orange box over on the website, put your name, email address in it, hit send it, and I will send you that guide for free. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is a review of Tamron 70 to 300 millimeter 4.5 to 6.3 lens for Sony E Mount Cameras. Now, I took this lens out to the football field to photograph some quarterbacks doing some quarterback training, and I used the A7C from Sony because I figured that that would pair really well with this lens. Now, because it's an E mount, it's going to work perfectly well on full frame as well as the cropped sensor bodies that Sony makes. On a cropped sensor body, you have the equivalent of a 105 to 450 millimeter lens. Now, let's take a walk around this lens. When you pick it up, you'll realize that it's light as a feather because it only weighs in at 1.2 pounds or 545 grams. For those of you who count in grams, we do pounds here because we're dumber that we didn't get on the imperial system, or is it called imperial? Yeah, metrics. Thanks, Steven. Metric. We're on imperial. They're on metric. We should have been on metric all along. They tried and they failed because we're dumb Americans. That's right. It's true. Don't hate me in the comments. Oh, pick up this Canadian shirt, by the way, if you like Canada, because we've got the I Shoot Raw Canadian edition shirt at store.froknowsphoto.com. Anyway, back to the lens right here. It is light. It feels like a feather. Is it built well? I wasn't gonna actually bang it, but I mean, it's fine. It feels like a kit 70 to 300 lens that you would find on Nikon or you would find on Canon. But the point is that it's available for Sony, and there aren't a lot of options for Sony E Mount lenses that are small, light, and technically affordable, because this is only 550 bucks. Let's take off the lens cap. We have a 67 millimeter lens cap. This is your filter thread, so 67 millimeters. It comes with the lens hood. On the side of the lens, we have absolutely nothing. There are 0.0 switches on here. You have your manual focus right here, and you have your zoom right here to embiggen it. Does it feel easy to zoom? Yeah, it's not hard to zoom at all. But right before making this video, I forgot that Tamron has a lens like this. This is a 28 millimeter to 200 millimeter zoom lens, and it's a 2.8 to 5.6, and it's smaller and it's heavier, but it feels better, and it's for the E mount. You're gonna have to ask yourself this: is it worth an extra $100 to get a 28 to 200 millimeter that starts at 2.8 and only goes out to 5.6? The trade-off is this gives you 300 millimeters, but it only gives you up to, 70 to 300. This is a mega zoom, and on the lighter camera of the A7C right here, this may be a good option. But what I want to do right now is take a look at the sample images from the 70 to 300 and tell you what I think, starting out here at the football field. It was early in the morning, so now we're about 9 o'clock in the morning. Really good light coming in at my back, lighting up the faces if I was shooting in the right direction. And having a 70 to 300 on the A7C is a really light combination. And I will say the autofocus is super snappy coming out of this. Found the eye when I needed to find the eye. Couldn't see through the viewfinder because it is a dinky, small, tiny viewfinder. And it's the one thing that I hate the most about the A7C is getting my eye into a viewfinder that is this freaking small, because it absolutely sucks to shoot with. But with that being said, let's take a look at this image. The autofocus found the eye even with the subject at a distance. But you're seeing my EVF right now. Do you see how shaky it is? There is no image stabilization in this lens. Now, I wouldn't expect it to be in this lens for 550 bucks, but I would have expected that the image stabilization in the Sonys to be better. And the honest truth is, Nikon's is better, it feels better when I'm using it, and Canon's is better right off the rip than it is without image stabilization in these lenses. It just feels awfully warbly. And before anybody says, did you have it on? Yeah, right after the shoot, I double checked because I'm like, why is this so shaky? And I'm like, yeah, it actually was on. Back into this image right here. Don't forget you can download sample raw files on the website, but the colors, the tones look good. The background, it doesn't look so good at 6.3 because I'm at 300 millimeters. If they're closer to me, for example, like this image right here, where I'm much closer to the subject, I'm zoomed out to 300 millimeters and the background disappears. So yeah, even at 6.3, you can get separation from the background, but a lot of it depends on how close you are to your subject. Because back to this first image, I'm pretty far away at 300 millimeters from him, and you can see that the background is more distracting. Moving on to the next shot, we have a vertical here. We're at 1/800th of a second at 6.3 at ISO 400. This is important to remember. People are probably thinking, Jared, why are you at 400 ISO if it's a bright day and it's early in the morning? Because if I'm at 100 ISO and I'm at 4.5 at 70, and then I zoom out to 300, well, because this is a variable aperture lens, meaning it changes as you zoom, it's going to be 6.3 at 100 ISO, which means my shutter speed is gonna go slower and I may get blur. This is why I honestly think that these kit lenses sometimes are more confusing for people when they start out if they're trying to shoot manually versus being in the auto modes. But just be aware that if you have a variable aperture lens like this, you may want to start at a higher ISO outside to compensate as you zoom. But this one is shooting with the shadow side of his face. Colors look good. Autofocus is fast. I wasn't missing shots because of autofocus. The autofocus kept up with the Tamron lens on the A7C, and it worked perfectly fine for what I needed. Plus, the 10 frames a second wasn't bad at all. Let me jump in here real quick to show you this image that was taken with the Tamron 70 to 300 millimeter lens and edited using some of the presets from FroPack 2, starting with AC/DC. So here we have AC/DC, then we're gonna go to Apollo No White Balance, which actually looks really freaking good with one click. Then we've got Bob Ross for People. Caribbean Creamsicle looks really good. We've got Cinnamon Toast Crunch with high contrast, and then we're gonna finish it off with Matte Black with high contrast. But I kinda wanna go back to Apollo No White Balance. Look at this, Apollo No White Balance looks really good right off the rip. But now keep in mind, that's with just one click and no tweaks being done. Now the reason we created these presets is to help you speed up your raw workflow as well as give yourself a great starting point. So if you want to check out 15 all new custom Lightroom presets, head on over to fronosphoto.com/FroPack2, because while you're over there, you can play with the sliders to see the befores and the afters. And if you decide to pick them up right now, they are currently on sale. Or if you'd like to save even more, you can pick up the FroPack bundle, which includes FroPack 1 and FroPack 2, and save even more. Now, let's get back to the video. This one's at 256 millimeters, a little tighter with a horizontal shot, and you can see that the background blows out just a little more, but we zoom in on him, he is not, look at his eyes, nice and sharp. The colors are really nice. So I'm happy with the results that I'm getting out of this basic, we'll call it a basic kit lens because that's what it is at 70 to 300, but it's getting the job done outside. Now, the big question is that I get from a lot of people is, why can't I get good pictures indoors? My camera sucks. It's not the camera, it's you. Well, it's partly you, and it's also the lens that you're using. There's a reason we use 2.8s indoors. There's a reason for that, because a 6.3 indoors is not gonna cut it. You're just not gonna be able to focus quick enough. You're not gonna be able to get enough light in there. Your ISO is gonna be sky high. Your grain is gonna be super high, and the noise is gonna be prevalent, and you're not gonna get great results. This lens is gonna be great outdoors for soccer, for football, for sports, for light travel and carrying around. It's going to get the job done for 550 bucks. But before this review is over, we're gonna talk about the 70 to 180 2.8 that Tamron makes. Yeah, that's 1,100 bucks. It's twice as much as this lens, but if you wanna shoot indoors, you're gonna need that faster glass and that 2.8. But we'll talk more about that in a minute. This is awesome. The fact that I can shoot vertical, fill the frame without cropping like this is a testament to the A7C and Sony's autofocus, that I was able to compose it like this, have the eye get tracked, and have the lens be able to keep up with the kid running down the field to be able to track him and keep it nice and focused when I'm shooting. So that is a nice image. But look at this. We're out at 300 millimeters, zooming in on his face. This is like a portrait. Look at the tones. Look at the sharpness. Yeah, it's at 6.3, but the colors and the tones look fantastic. Nobody looking at this picture or the next picture, which is very similar, is going to be able to say, oh, this was done with a 6.3 Tamron versus 70 to 200 2.8 Sony. They just won't see it because the lighting is perfect, and with better lighting, you get better results. Continuing on from the same position, we just went from 300 millimeters to pulling back to 132 millimeters. Now we're at f5, and you can still see the background there. It's gonna be a little more distracting, but we have a nice range. 70 to 300 is still an ultimate range on a full frame camera when you are shooting outdoors. But look at this, the horizontal shot, a bunch of players stacked front to back, they're distracting. It's distracting to have the people in the background not go out of focus. I'm at 164 millimeters. Now, if I was further back shooting at 300, maybe there would be just a little bit more separation, but it still worked. The camera did a great job helping me find where I needed to focus right on the eye, on the subject that I wanted, and the focus kept up perfectly fine. Now, here's an interesting one, because I'm gonna compare this shot on the left to this shot on the right, which is with a Nikon 70 to 200 2.8S on the Nikon Z6 II that I was also testing out at the same time. One's at 2.8 and one's at 6.3. Look at the difference with how much the background dissipates. That's what you get with a 2.8 lens, but you don't get that 300, so you don't have that same reach outdoors. But this is where I'm gonna talk about the 70 to 180 Tamron for 1,100 bucks. If you're a serious photographer, this is something that you wanna do. You wanna do portraits, you wanna do sports, you wanna do indoor sports with a 2.8, you may wanna look at the Tamron 70 to 180. Yes, it's more expensive, but I rather see you spend the money on a 2.8 piece of glass than spend $550 on this to not get what you want if you wanna shoot indoors. If you want light, easy to carry around, the most zoom that you can get, then the 7300 might be the right choice for you. Just understand it's really only meant for outdoors in bright situations. But a 70 to 180 for 1,100 bucks for portraits, for shooting hockey, for shooting volleyball or basketball indoors, for shooting portraits, that is going to be a great lens to invest some money into. Let me jump in here real quick to ask you, are you tired of your friends telling you that all of your pictures are so amazing, but you're not sure if they really are? Well, I offer two different types of critiques right now, a 15-minute recorded rapid fire critique, as well as a one-on-one 45-minute Zoom call live with me. Now, for more information and to sign up, you can go to frontosPhoto.com/mentorship. Now, let's get back to the video. And the last image that I'll show you before I get to the sniff and wind tunnel test is Abe right here, the quarterback coach. He was showing them what he wanted to do, move with authority, and the focus tracked well. This is one of the things I was concerned about with this 70 to 300 was, can it keep up with autofocus? Is the autofocus going to be good? And we know that Sony has some of the best, if not the best, autofocus tracking in the game, and it kept up with this lens, so that passed with flying colors. But now it's time for the all-important sniff and wind tunnel test. So let's start with the wind tunnel test. I'm gonna get all the way back here and get a running start, Steven. Holy God, it passed the wind tunnel test with flying colors. It didn't even move. But let's sniff it. Oh, yeah. Oh, it smells like a Goodyear tire. Not brought to you by Goodyear Tire. Oh, but it does smell really good. All right. Big questions here. 28 to 200, 70 to 300, 70 to 180 2.8. If I had to choose right now between these two lenses sitting here as your first lens, I'm taking a 28 to 200 for 100 bucks more. It's a 2.8 to what I say, 5.6. Yeah, it's a 2.8 to 5.6. This is gonna be the one lens to almost rule them all for you, especially if you want light carry lens to travel with on an A7C. And it's a 2.8 wide open, and it goes to 5.6. But if you're gonna stick to outdoors and just shoot outdoors, and you wanna shoot your kid running around, you wanna shoot the grandkids, you wanna photograph birds in the trees, you want something that's, well, we can't say inexpensive, but still $550 is inexpensive, relatively speaking, to the more expensive lenses, this could be a great option for you. Baseball, outdoor basketball, football, soccer, kids running around in the park. You can do portraits with it. It's going to work. You can get the job done. You just have to think, is this going to make you happy, or do you want to grow and have a 2.8 lens? Because if you want to grow and have that 2.8 lens, do not spend $550 on this. Save up, get the 70 to 180 2.8 from Tamron, and call it a day. Don't forget, you can download sample images over on the website. That's where I'm going to leave it. Thank you very much for watching. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.